BK was back in Delhi by 7:30 that evening, but his mind remained firmly anchored to the chain of murders unfolding in Kolkata. Waiting for him at the guest house was Balaton, a trusted caretaker who had been part of BK's life ever since his college days, more family than employee, and one of the very few people who understood when to leave him alone. Dinner arrived at the usual hour. A brief exchange, a familiar routine, and then silence claimed the evening. The files from Kolkata lay open before him, yet the answers he sought remained frustratingly distant. Months had passed, the investigation had consumed enormous resources, and still nobody seemed any closer to understanding who was behind the killings. BK turned the pages slowly, studying the photographs, reviewing notes, allowing the fragments to settle inside his mind. He had learned long ago that forcing an investigation rarely produced results. Sometimes the mind needed silence before it could recognize what others had overlooked. For a while, he watched television without really watching it. The images changed constantly, but his thoughts never left Kolkata. Before retiring for the night, he completed the small ritual that kept him connected to normal life. A phone call, a few familiar voices, the comfort of routine. Then darkness. The city continued moving outside, but inside the guest house, BK remained awake longer than usual. Tomorrow would bring fresh questions, and somewhere among those questions, the truth was waiting. Elsewhere, a very different morning was beginning. Angad awoke to the sound of soft footsteps approaching the entrance of the pipe. Blinking against the faint light, he looked up and saw Balika standing there with a dish antenna and an old television set balanced carefully in her arms. The sight was so unexpected that he simply stared. Balika appeared pleased with herself. She explained that she had no interest in watching television alone, and that the set might help reduce his boredom whenever she was away. Angad smiled quietly. Her kindness often arrived disguised as practicality. Without wasting time, she began connecting wires. Using the same improvised arrangement Angad had created earlier to draw electricity from the overhead lines. A few moments later, the screen flickered to life. Static crackled briefly. Then an old Bengali song emerged from the tiny speaker. Balika immediately began humming along with the melody. For a few minutes, the narrow pipe no longer felt like a temporary refuge. It almost felt like a home. Eventually, she instructed him to get ready quickly. There was a temple nearby she wanted to visit. Angad offered no resistance. When he returned after washing, wearing the cleanest clothes he could find, Balika examined him for a moment before asking a question that had apparently been troubling her for days. The last time she had washed his clothes, she had noticed something missing. There had been no innerwear. Curiosity had finally overcome patience, and Angad responded with complete seriousness. He did not own any. For several seconds, Balika simply stared at him. Then the meaning of what he had said struck her. The expression on her face was priceless. Angad could no longer maintain the act. The laughter began immediately. First hers, then his. Within moments, both were laughing so hard that neither could continue the conversation. The sound echoed through the pipe, turning an ordinary morning into a memory that would remain with them for years. Still smiling, they crossed over the busy road together. The temple stood quietly amid the chaos of the city. Smaller than the temples Angad remembered from home, yet carrying a warmth that felt strangely welcoming. The scent of incense drifted through the air. Temple bells rang intermittently, and devotees moved through the premises with calm familiarity. Most temples in the city honored goddess Durga, and this was no exception. After the puja concluded, prasad was distributed freely to everyone present. Simple, warm and satisfying. The two stepped outside together. Then, somewhere between one conversation and the next, Balika leaned closer and whispered something into Angad's ear. For a brief moment he froze. The amusement slowly returned to his face. A smile appeared, followed by a gentle tap on her back. The question would remain unanswered, at least for now. Balika had asked whether he would marry her. The moment dissolved into laughter almost immediately. Yet something subtle lingered behind it. Neither acknowledged it, neither attempted to define it, but it remained there nevertheless. Walking quietly beside them near the temple entrance stood a small shop. Rows of anklets decorated the display window. Silver, brass, glass beads reflecting the afternoon sunlight. Balika stopped instantly. The excitement on her face appeared completely genuine. She admired each design with the delight of a child discovering treasure. Angad found himself watching her rather than the anklets. Watching happiness was sometimes more beautiful than possessing it. For several moments, she remained absorbed in the tiny world of shining ornaments. Eventually, they resumed walking. Balika carried her excitement with her, and Angad carried something else, a promise he never spoke aloud. One day, when circumstances allowed, he would return to that shop and buy the anklet she loved most. Because somewhere along the way, without planning it, without even noticing when it had happened, Balika had become important. And for the first time in a very long while, Angad found himself wanting to give something back to another human being.
Where stories begin.